As someone who spent over a decade in content marketing, I've seen every version of personalization from first name tags to predictive journeys. Most of it wasn't truly personal. It was templated, reactive, and often too late. Now in 2025, that won't cut it. Customers expect real-time relevance, zero friction, and context-aware experiences. With third-party cookies fading and privacy standards rising, the message is clear: deliver value instantly or be ignored. Personalization is being rebuilt from the ground up by AI. In fact, 92% of businesses are now using AI to personalize experiences, but only 17% of marketing leaders are truly unlocking its full potential. That's a massive opportunity gap because true hyper-personalization, right? It's about building intelligent systems that anticipate and tailor content, products, and offer dynamically across every single interaction. Done right, it changes everything: conversion rates, loyalty curves, and retention metrics. So, how do we get there? To answer that, we've brought in one of the most respected voices in global marketing transformation, David Edelman. He has spent over 3 decades leading the charge on marketing and customer experience, building global strategy practices at BCG, McKinsey, and Digitas, and serving as CMO at 8 now. Today, he advises Fortune 500 companies and AI startups alike. And he teaches the next generation of marketers as an executive advisor and senior fellow at Harvard Business School. Oh, and his new book, Personalized Customer Strategy in the Age of AI, debuted at number 4 on USA Today's Business Bestseller list. That week also named him one of their Power 100 AI trailblazers. This is the kind of insight you'll want to take notes on. Joining him in is Jashandeep Kaur, who's led product and service strategies from the inside. She spent years shaping customer experiences that don't just look good on paper. They work in real life. Here's David and Jashan with hyper-personalized marketing beyond segmentation. Over to you both.
Hello and welcome all. I am Jashandeep Kaur, Associate Team Lead at Grizzly Interactive, and I'll be your moderator for this conversation. Let's start with a simple question. When was the last time a digital experience made you feel truly seen? If that moment felt rare, it's exactly why this session matters. With rising privacy expectations and smarter tech, today's marketing has to strike a balance between relevance and trust. To help us unpack what that exactly looks like, we are joined by David Edelman, Senior Fellow at Harvard and advisor to global companies and AI startups. David, welcome to the session. We're glad to have you with us today.
Delighted to be here, Jashandeep. Thank you.
So David, to kick things off, why is the shift from traditional segmentation to hyper-personalization so important right now? And maybe more importantly, how do you define hyper-personalization in today's marketing landscape?
Sure. Let me work backwards and start with the definition first of hyper-personalization, where hyper-personalization anticipates somebody's need and creates an experience to make it easier for somebody to realize their need based on information about that person that has been gathered in a way that is comfortable, permissioned, and appropriate. It's all about relevance in the moment. And the reason that's becoming so important is because we're all demanding it, and it's possible. If you think about the brands that you get more and more usage out of every day, whether it's Spotify for music, Uber, even Amazon, the reason you use these is because how they use information about you to streamline your ability to find and experience what you want. And so that expectation is now what consumers want from any brand, not just digital native brands that they do business with. And now with the capabilities all across the delivery chain, from media targeting to rethinking the whole process of onboarding a new customer for a service business, content management, analytics to be able to spot real-time triggers, and we can get into all of this. But all of these capabilities, which I've been writing about, I wrote a first article on segment one marketing in 1989, before the internet. But now the capabilities are really there to make it happen.
I think that's a great perspective, David. So it takes me to the next question. How can organizations deliver contextual personalization and maintain customer profiles without relying on cookies? And why does old school segmentation isn't enough anymore?
Sure. So there's two ways of looking at this. One is what happens after you actually capture direct information about somebody through an interaction, where you can have first-party information, which is all of the interaction data, or zero-party information, which is just asking people questions. It's astonishing to me how rare marketers ask questions. And then the third is coming back to this issue of cookies. A lot of that comes down to some of the new capabilities to manage and match identity. I'll get to that in just a bit. But let me first talk about first-party and zero-party data. So in the act of interacting with people, most businesses may have marketing, sales, product, service, an amazing array of different functions, all interacting with different databases, with different structures, meant for different purposes that are not necessarily easy to bring together. People are investing money in data lakes and CDPs, customer data platforms like Snowflake, but it takes a while. And now, though, there's more and more capabilities to use AI to bring that information together to get a richer picture of an individual. Generative AI can look at one database, look at a second database, understand the schema of each, and write the code to combine them. For example, there's a product out there called narrative.ai that does that for many large brands. But a lot of AI systems, including Search Unify from Graziti, do that by bringing together all the data about a customer so that a service rep can see an integrated picture. So there's more and more tools to bring that data together. So one thing, how can you think about managing identity at a time when you don't have cookies? Well, you actually have a lot of contacts. But if you're a marketer, you only think about marketing data as opposed to all the data that you can have across an enterprise's interaction with a customer. And the ability to now bring that together is easier than ever before. And now there's more and more, in addition, AI tools that can validate the identity of somebody. They can look at things like the cell phone footprint, where somebody was, the nature of the kind of interaction. And they have levels and levels and levels of things that can match. But the reality is, for the most part, first party and then asking people questions, zero party data, is really where more and more of the power is going to lie.
I think the breakdown was really helpful, David. So moving on, let's talk about the outcomes. Let's say if you're investing in predictive AI-powered personalization, how do you prove it's actually working for the organizations? What kind of metrics that matter today when cookies are disappearing and you have clicks that no longer tell the full story? So how do you think that work?
Yeah, the metrics depend a lot on your goal and the use case. What is the behavior that you're trying to create? Because in some cases, it's not necessarily about conversion, that's in a sale, but it could be in terms of managing down attrition. It could be about getting more engagement with a product. So there's different kinds of outcomes. For example, when I was chief marketing officer at Aetna, one of the things that we were trying to do was to get people to take healthier actions. Because if they took healthier actions, even simple things like getting a flu shot, going to an urgent care center instead of an emergency room, they would be healthier, they would save money, we would save money, and we'd start deflecting the rising costs of healthcare. And so the key there, the metric was, did they take the action? And because we got claims data, and because we could also see if somebody clicked, we can close the loop on the back end. So I think the issue is more around understanding what the behavior is and how that touches different databases, and then making sure you're instrumenting it to close the loop. So for example, in the case of Aetna, knowing that we needed to go to the medical claims database to find out whether somebody actually got a flu shot and bring that back. It wasn't just a click online. So you have to think about that full range of data potential and then use that to measure the actual outcomes in terms of behavior change. And so there's going to be many different ones. For example, in onboarding, you're onboarding somebody who just signed up for one of your credit cards. Well, you're going to want to see, did they download the app? Did they register in the app? Have they used their card yet? Have they embedded their card as a default for payment in Apple Pay or Google Pay? Those are all different things. They all come from different databases. And I think what marketers have to realize now is that it's not just about marketing data justifying marketing outcomes. It's about behavior change across the customer journey and making sure you can get access to that data to close the loop.
I think perfectly drives home the point that personalization has to deliver more than warm fuzzies. It has to move business metrics in a meaningful way, like you said. So moving on, let's talk about tech. What kind of infrastructure do companies need to support this fast, flexible, and scalable personalization? What are your views on this, David?
Yeah, so most mid-sized to large companies actually already have a fair amount of marketing technology, be it anything from HubSpot, Braze, Salesforce, Adobe. They have a lot of capabilities embedded in those different tools. Whether they use them is another question, and that's something I think most businesses have to challenge themselves, whether they're really using the capabilities that they have available. But I think one of the most important things now is this issue of thinking about the whole architecture and integration, again, coming back to what I said before, that's going to have to stretch beyond marketing. You're going to need some kind of layer where information about the customer is coming in from a number of different interaction points, because all those interaction points are the outcomes of what you're doing. It also tells you things about the customer and their context. They just called in with a problem at the call center. They were just on the app trying to pay a bill and couldn't do it, so they called into the call center. All of those are signals and triggers. And so again, it's about moving beyond just marketing tech architecture to actually look at total customer data architecture and making sure that bloodstream of flow across the company is coherent and getting integrated in a way that marketing can use it. So it's a question of layering and having an intelligent layer that connects those databases. Now, there's more and more architectures that are enabling this to be possible. New AI tools that can actually use the same principles as distributed search to go when you need something, go figure out where to find it and then bring it back. Again, Search Unify from Graziti is a really good example of that. But that's what you've got to think about. It isn't just marketing response data held in a marketing database. One of the first things I do whenever I work with clients is I say, we got to get down on paper in a visual diagram the architecture of how customer information is collected through the different touch points, and who has access to what, and where are the air gaps, where are the places where there's inconsistencies in timing, and we've got to work at the roots. Otherwise, we're going to have really misinformed data, and it's not going to be able to fuel, for example, artificial intelligence models that try to spot triggers, like a trigger that somebody is about to attrit and you better jump on it. So you've got to think about that broader architecture and that layer that's going to be able to bring together customer information.
I'm sure that's what many teams are navigating right now, having the tools, but I think having the right talent and mindset to actually use them effectively. So David, what do you think? How many organizations build the kind of skills and the culture needed to make hyper-personalization a reality in 2025?
I think we're still in the early days. So I was involved in a survey of CMOs just recently on how they are using AI. It was together with the Boston Consulting Group. And one of the clear things that are coming out is, about 25% of CMOs are fairly advanced. They're getting there in terms of changing the way they operate to use AI tools to drive personalization. But that means 75% are still in very, very early stages. Now, what do we mean by being more advanced in terms of their capabilities? One thing is they are redesigning their operations for very fast cycle test and learn, test and learn, test and learn. AI, all of the systems that power personalization need to constantly be fed. How do they know? How do you know what's the best thing for Jashandeep in this situation versus Dave? The only way you know is to test. And the AI's got to learn through constant testing. You also have, if you're really doing personalization, thousands, if not millions, of interactions going on simultaneously. And so the traditional way of managing a campaign where it takes 13 people, 13 weeks to get something out the door, just doesn't fly. So you need to rethink, and we use the term agile marketing to bring the principles of agile software development into the marketing sphere. And what that means is having smaller teams. Instead of 13 teams, how about 3 teams of 5 people getting at a minimum 3 times the amount of activity going out the door? But the key is for those 5 people, they have to be able to do more breadth of work. Marketing has gotten too hyper-specialized. We've got people who just do social content, search content, programmatic content, programmatic buying, and it starts to add up. And we've gotten all these hyper-specializations. With AI now, there's no reason to sustain that. The specialization exists because of the quirks involved in executing in each channel. AI is taking more of that on. So you need somebody who can just do creative, who can write copy, who can do visual illustrations. You need someone who can understand media across all the different channels, somebody who can understand insights and do analytics, and the AI tools now empower them to do more. And so the organizations that are more advanced than the others have smaller teams. Each of those people has a wide range of domain that they're in charge of, and they're using the AI tools to enable them to do more. And in the act of doing that, they can be faster because they're all working together as a small group of 5.
Absolutely. I think it was really insightful. And now as we wrap up, I love your take on this. What does it really take to stand out in the customer experience today? And what advice would you give to the marketeers and the leaders looking to future-proof their personalization efforts?
Sure. What it takes to stand out, and we outline this in my book. So pitching a little about the book, but nonetheless, there's 5 promises that a brand implicitly makes to a customer when a brand offers personalization. First and foremost, you are empowering somebody to do something that they could just not do before. Let me just give you a very quick example. Solar panels were something that my town offered a discount on. You could get a discount on your property taxes if you got solar panels. Well, one solar panel provider sent me a piece of mail that had used Google Earth to show the roof of my house with solar panels, how much energy those would generate based on the longitude and latitude, the east-west orientation of my house. They went to Zillow, got the square footage of my house, estimated how much energy I would use, and then they were able to calculate that I could save over 20% of my total energy bills from solar. That's empowering me. That's helping me figure out something I could not do before. So you have to empower somebody. You have to know them. You have to have collected data about them that they're comfortable with. Brands like Marriott have very explicit strategies to ask people questions. If you're a frequent business traveler, where do you want to go on a personal vacation with your family? What kinds of trips do you like? They're constantly gathering personal but direct information. Then it's about reach me. So we've got empower me, know me, reach me. So hit me when it's appropriate. Don't just bombard me, because now with AI tools you can. You can come up with all this creative. You can come up with all these triggers. Think about what's actually going to be relevant for me in the moment and use the tools to orchestrate that. Then show me a creative rendering, like the roof of my house with solar panels on top of it. That's giving me a very vivid personal look at what's possible, and AI can make that happen. And then the last is delight me. Make it better and better as you get smarter and smarter. The same way Uber, Spotify, Amazon, as they're constantly running tests, as I do more with them, their recommendations are more relevant. So in order to do it, empower the customer, know them, reach them, show them, delight them. Think about that from a strategic lens instead of bombard them, instead of manipulate them. Think about strategically, how are you actually empowering people to get value?
I think, David, that was something really full of insights and takeaways. Before we wrap up, I think we have some questions from our audience. Let's take up those questions. So the first question that we have, so what are the common pitfalls you've seen when companies attempt to implement hyper-personalization, and how can they be avoided?
Sure. Most of the time, when companies start with personalization, they're just using triggers that they find that a lot of it's like retargeting. Somebody went to the site, they were interested, so let's follow up immediately. And what starts to happen is these pile up, and you've got basically a single customer getting totally bombarded. I mean, I bought a gift for my daughters, for my grandchild, for example. But I got the gift and I'm done, and constantly bombarding me with more offers for cribs. How many do I need? Just because I was interested in buying a crib. So you're not thinking about this from the customer's point of view. So the key is you got to put yourself in the seat, and especially companies with multiple products that all want to target the same customer. Frequently, each of those products or categories may have their own P&L and their own budgets, and they're all chasing the same customer versus stepping back and saying, how do we want to organize this?
Let's take up another question. Since you're talking about organizations, what advice would you give to smaller or mid-sized organizations that want to embrace hyper-personalization but won't yet have an enterprise-level data infrastructure?
Sure, there are small things, especially if you're a B2B smaller one. Think about just even the basics of account-based marketing that are out there, where you've got a fair amount of data about a particular account. Not everything's going to be completely automated, but start to think, if you've got a new product that you're releasing, why are you blasting that to everybody as opposed to doubling down on the accounts for whom that would be most interesting? I think there's some capabilities, especially even in the most basic CRM systems that you may have. And you may have like HubSpot, Braze, the ones that are more appropriate for mid-sized companies. The key, all those systems can support pretty basic, good, solid starts at personalization. It's really around you saying, I'm going to market based on where a customer is at a given time versus when I just want to push crap out to them. And so it's really an issue more of perspective and then using the tools you have to follow that through.
So taking the last question for this session, David, you talked a lot about the AI tools. Curious how you see personalization expectations evolving across markets. How should brands adjust their strategies with the data available or the user behavior patterns?
So one of the other things we did in that BCG survey was survey thousands of customers around the world, consumers, about their attitude towards customer information. The question on the table is, are you comfortable with companies using information about you to do business with you? And interestingly, the average globally was 75% of people were comfortable with that as long as they got some kind of value out of it. It was higher in certain countries like India, actually, because there's a lot more digitally going on there. And in some of the markets in Europe, it was a bit lower, but it rarely got below 65%. What is interesting, though, is the flip side of that, which is on average, 2/3 of people said they had stopped doing business with a brand who used information about them inappropriately, where they felt it was creepy, where they felt it was not right. And let me just give you a very simple example. A client of mine, she has a dog. She has posted on social media a lot about her dog. Well, a software company that was trying to get her attention shipped her a little box with dog biscuits in it, even though this was to pitch software. And so she was totally creeped out. Like, how did this software company know she was into dogs, and why would that be appropriate? And that was just simply not okay. So you really have to, again, I can't say this enough, put yourself in the customer's shoes, all the way from the top, all the way down. Chief marketing officers have to be banging the table with what they believe the customer will actually think about this. How is the customer experiencing this? All of this stuff we're sending, how is it hitting them? They have to be the ones to bang on the table, because it is going to make a difference. If you do it right, there's upside, but there's a lot of downside if you don't.
Okay, I think before we wind up, we do have one interesting question. Have you seen a change in the way marketers conduct research with the AI evolving so fast? I myself have noticed with some marketing research can now be conducted through conversation frameworks with agent-to-agent protocol, for instance. So David, would you like to take this question?
Yeah, I mean, look, the agent-to-agent stuff is pretty early on. It's not scaled yet, so it's not something you can completely rely on, really at all. But there are other tools. So, for example, one thing for research is some of the latest tools for social media listening. So there's a company called Stitched Insights that really does sophisticated analysis of commentary about your brand in real time online. And it can even use what people are saying to understand who they are. Are they Gen Z, millennials, older? They can actually tell from the nature of words they use, can actually find out demographics, can come up with segmentation analyses. So being able to understand the commentary out there is really key. And that's also especially important because the AI engines, so like ChatGPT, Perplexity, Anthropic, they use community content often when they're answering questions about which is the best product for me. Because people are now using AI-based search instead of necessarily looking for blue links in Google. And when they do that, The commentary that's online is a significant contributor to those AI engines. So understanding what's happening out there and what people are saying is absolutely critical.
That was so much insightful, David. Thank you so much. The session was packed with insight and takeaways. I know our audience is walking away with a clearer picture of how to approach personalization in a way that's intelligent, ethical, and effective. Thanks again for joining us, David.
My pleasure. It was a lot of fun. Hope that sparked some new ideas from everyone in the audience.
It does. Thank you.
It truly was the power-packed session, David and Darshan. Sharp, strategic, and exactly what modern marketers need to hear today. And apologies if any of the questions went unanswered. We'd like to address them. Just mail to us at info@cresciti.com, and we will be happy to address each of those questions. If there's one thing this session made undeniable, it's that personalization is about earning relevance through trust, first-party data, and AI that understands intent in motion. And that shift from segmentation to hyper-personalization is operational, strategic, and revenue critical. This is the kind of clarity marketing leaders need right now. Bold thinking, grounded in execution. And we are speaking of execution, our next session builds right on that theme. We are diving into how generative AI is reshaping B2B marketing, not just in content, but in strategy, efficiency, and outcomes. So stay with us. We're just getting into the momentum zone right now. See you in the next session.